my best to make sure that you feel good for investing an hour of your time and joining the virtual meeting. And it's going to be 1.5 hours. But let's just see if we can collectively learn something from today's session. And I have no hesitation in saying that you will definitely learn something important today. And provided if you listen to me carefully and you make an honest attempt to try some of these concepts on your own. And if you know me well, then you know John C. Maxwell, because I keep talking about him every time, right? For those of you who are not aware of who John C. Maxwell is, he's an American author, coach, speaker, trainer, of course, a pastor as well, and he has written more than 75 books, which is primarily focusing on leadership. He sold more than 30 million copies in 50 different languages. He is my mentor, and I follow his work very religiously for the last many years. And if you're following my posts on social media or my blog posts, or if you've already read my book, Don't Coast, I'm sure you heard me saying some of these statements, which I'm going to say now. You heard me, maybe in the book also, I wrote this multiple times. Growth happens daily, not in a day. It's not what you do in a day, it's all about what you do daily. We will never change our lives until we change something we do daily. We overestimate what we can do in a day and underestimate what we can do in several days. You see, there is a theme going on there. I began by saying growth happens daily, not in a day. And then I said, it's not about what you do in a day, it's all about what you do daily. Right? And then I also said, you will never change your life until you change something that you do daily. And one of the common things that we all do is we overestimate what we can do in a day, and we always underestimate what we can do in several days. I wrote in the book as well, either you have to pay now and play later, or play now and pay later. No matter what, life will definitely expect you to pay. You may wonder, why am I talking about John C. Maxwell when I say my topic is atomic habits, and it is based on a book called Atomic Habits. There's a reason. I would like to set some context for today's discussion, and that's why I'm talking about John C. Maxwell. So let me begin that by introducing Rule of 5. If you are with me, if you're working with me since a few years, I remember teaching this 3 years back or so to a group of selected people. So what is Rule of 5? I told you that Maxwell is 73 years old, and he has written more than 75 books in the last 50 years or so on leadership. And someone asked him, how did you manage to write 75 books? It's it's not an ordinary feat. How did you do that? He said, very simple, Rule of 5. So what's Rule of 5? You know what Maxwell does every day? Because he knows that he wanted to be an author, he wanted to write books as many as he can on leadership concepts. So he does 5 things every day. And what does he do? He reads, he thinks, he files, he asks questions, and he writes. So when you wanted to, as an author, when you wanted to write a book, first you need to read a lot of books and try and see what kind of material is available in that particular domain. And you need to constantly upskill yourself. That's why he reads every day. And he thinks, he reflects his own perspective, and whether he would agree with something, not agree with things, how is it related to his life. So he reads, he thinks, he also files. When he comes across any important codes, important work, he will just go ahead and keep filing those things. And then he will ask questions himself. Either he will ask question, he'll ask the questions to the other, or the various other experts in the related field, or he will ask questions to himself. And then at the end of the day, he will also write. So he's doing 5 things: read, think, file, ask questions, and write. And he's doing it every day. So he'll get up the next day morning, he will read, he will think, he will file, he will ask questions, he will write. So imagine if someone is doing it for more than 50 years, right? Writing a book is very easy. Do you agree with me? Let me elaborate it a little further. Let's assume that you've got a tree in your backyard that you want to cut down with your axe. You've got a tree in your backyard which you want to cut down with your axe. And I don't know what your tree is. It could be overweight, it could be bad food habits, it could be binge watching, it could be addiction to smoking, addiction to pornography, jealousy, procrastination, lack of motivation, laziness. It could be anything. I don't know, because I know what is my tree in my backyard. And I certainly don't know what is your tree in your backyard, because in order to know that, I need to know what is holding you or what are you holding on to that is holding you, right? Without knowing that, I won't be able to find out, what is the tree which is bothering you. But I know one thing: if you feel like you are, that tree is dragging you and it is slowing your life, and you wanted to cut down the tree from your life, you can do one thing. So think about this. So you pick an axe, go to your backyard, go to the tree, you swing 5 times, put the axe down. Okay? Again, just like rule of 5. Go sleep, get up the next day, go to your backyard, take the axe, swing it 5 times, put the axe down. Every day you swing 5 times, not 50, not 15, not 500. Swing the axe daily 5 times. Let me ask the question: what is going to happen to that tree? The tree is definitely going to fall. I hope you agree with me, right? There's no question about that. If you swing 5 times a day, every day, the tree will fall. If it is a big tree, it might take a couple of years. If it is a small tree, maybe you can knock it in a month, in a week. So the size of the tree will determine how long it takes to fall. But here we are not discussing about how long it takes for the tree to fall. Rather, I'm trying to establish the fact that if you swing your axe 5 times a day, every day, the tree is going to fall. Therefore, if you and I wanted to be a better version of ourselves, we need to find our tree. We need to find our tools. So you need to know what tree is, hindering your growth, and what axe, what tool that you need to hold in your hand. Once you identify your tree, once you identify your axe, that's it. You start your intentional journey, right? So I'll say one more thing about Maxwell before I get into atomic habits. As I told you that he is considered to be one of the greatest leadership guru in the world. And in one award program, a moderator asked him in an auditorium full of leaders and senators, Maxwell, if there is one piece of advice that you would want to pass it on to the younger generation, what would that be? Right? Imagine someone who wrote 75 books, considered to be the leadership guru across the world, received many awards, and when someone asked him to give one advice for this young generation, he summed up all his experience into one sentence. And you know what is that sentence? He said, never underestimate the compounding effect of consistency. I repeat, never ever underestimate the compounding effect of consistency. So that says it all. That's the context for today's session as well. It's all about consistency. It's all about living that intentional life. So let me move on from Maxwell. I've taken 10 days of vacation during my Christmas break, and I've received the Atomic Habits book from Secret Santa at EnergyTech. And this book was on my to-do list for a very, very long time. It might be because of the internet pressure. It might be because I've read so many reviews about this book over the last year. So what I did, I went ahead and I studied the book. And I was blown away by the wisdom, tips, tricks provided in this book by the world's renowned habit expert, James Clear. I highly encourage each one of you, if you have got the habit of, I don't know whether you like reading books or not, but if you wanted to be a better version of yourself, you definitely wanted to get mastery over some new habits, I would encourage you to follow James Clear's blog or else buy this book. And let me also tell you, this is his first book. It took 12 years, almost 12 years to write this book. And he sold more than 3 million copies within the first year of releasing this book. So now I have just 10 slides with me, and I'm going to share my screen and share the presentation and take you through each of those slides. So let me share. Can you please confirm that you are able to see the screen? One able to see? Yes, thank you. So 1% better every day. So look at the slide. It clearly shows if you get better 1% every day, that is 1.01 times of 365, you will become 37% better by the end of the year. Conversely, if you become 1% worse every day, that is instead of 1, you become 0.99 every day, you will almost reach 0%. So what that slide is telling is small habits make a big difference. But you know what? Generally, what we think is, think that we need to do some great things, right? We need to think big. But you know what? The real change always comes from the compounding effect of hundreds of small decisions. This is what Maxwell also said, right? Compounding effect of consistency. So the real change always comes from the compounding effect of hundreds of small decisions. It could be doing 2 push-ups a day, meditating 5 minutes a day, reading 10 pages in a book every day, writing 1 page per day. It could be anything. This is what we call it as atomic habit. So you know what is a habit? Habit is nothing but a routine or a behavior which we perform on a regular basis, right? And then why do we call it as atomic habit? We all studied physics, right? An atom is a fundamental unit in a larger system. Atom forms molecules, molecules form compounds, compounds will result in larger substances. So an atom is a fundamental unit of a larger system. Similarly, habits are like the atoms of our lives, right? So as the essence of this entire book is that if you make small and easy changes and layer them on the top of one another like units in a larger system, you get powerful results. So if you get 1% better each day for 1 year, you'll end up 37 times better. Conversely, if you get 1% worse each day for 1 year, we will decline nearly down to 0. So therefore, once if you truly understand that graph, you shouldn't have an iota of doubt in believing that your life's quality depends on our habits quality. We wanted to get better, but we don't want to change our same habits. So what happens with the same habits? You'll end up with same results, right? But with better habits, anything is possible. I don't know whether you heard about something called Team Sky. So what is Team Sky? It's Great Britain's professional cycling team. Until 2010, British cyclists, they never won an Olympic medal in cycling. They never won Tour de France. I don't know how many of you know Tour de France. It is an annual men's multiple stage bicycle race conducted in France. It's very popular throughout the world and one of the best cycling races in the world. So you're talking about Great Britain's professional cycling team called Team Sky. And I said they never won any Olympic medal, never won Tour de France until 2010. That's when British government, they have appointed a gentleman by name Dave Brailsford as the performance coach of the team. And what is this guy believes in? He believes in the philosophy of searching for tiny margin of improvements in everything he does. So what he did, as soon as he got into action, he broke down everything that goes into riding a bike, either directly or indirectly. And then he worked on improving everything by 1%. So as I said, he believed in those small gains, and he believed that the small gains, when you add them up, it will result in remarkable improvement. So what did he do? He started with nutrition, started with weekly training programs, redesigned the bike seat, reduced the weight of the tires. He rubbed alcohol to the tires, for better grip. And he asked all the riders to wait, electrically heated overshots so that, they can maintain ideal muscle temperature. And he inserted biofeedback sensors in their body so that he can monitor their workouts, riding patterns. And he tested various fabrics that they used during riding. So this is all, directly related with bicycle riding. He did not stop there. You know what he did? He continued to find 1% improvement in areas that are generally overlooked and unexpected. So what did he do? He tested different types of massage gels. He hired a surgeon to teach each rider the best way to wash their hands so that they can reduce the chance of getting, catching cold. He determined the type of pillows and mattresses that led to the best night's sleep, and he insisted each one of them to carry those pillows and mattresses wherever they go. And he painted the entire truck with white color so that everyone can notice dust on the bicycle parts. So the list goes on and on. What I'm trying to say is he focused on achieving 1% gain in everything that is directly, indirectly related with that gain. And what he believed was, if you could execute this strategy successfully, Team Sky would be in a position to win an Olympic gold medal or Tour de France in next 5 years. But he was wrong. They won it in 3 years. In 2012, I think 2 years. In 2012, Team Sky won Tour de France. 2012 Olympic Games, the British cycling team won 70% of gold medals available. 2013 again, they won Tour de France with a different rider. And this team has got the most successful run in the modern cycling history. And how did they do? What can we learn from this approach? We overestimate the importance of one defining moment and underestimate the value of making better decisions on a daily basis. I told you, in order to become big in life, in order to achieve something, we always think that we have to make some earth-shattering movements, achieve certain, huge things. That's not right. You need to start working on tiny improvements on a daily basis. Massive success doesn't require massive action. Trust me when I say this. If you wanted to achieve massive success in your life, you need to start with tiny improvements. That's what the graph also says, right? That's what we call it as the aggregation of marginal gains. The aggregation of marginal gain is nothing but focusing on making small improvements in different areas. Over time, in aggregation, they will result in much bigger gains. But there's a problem here. Why, in spite of knowing this, if I ask you, do you not know this? Yes, we know. But there's a counterintuitive theory. That's why people not pay so much attention to it. Let's say that you wanted to become a millionaire. So if you start saving, you have to start saving money, right? But the problem is, if you start saving little money now, you are still not a millionaire. If you start going to the gym, you are still out of shape, right? If you start playing the piano, you are still not a musician. But the results will accumulate over some time. What we forget is transformation is always slow. That is the key thing that we all forget. Any transformation is always slow. But what happens when you start doing it, you don't see the result, and as a result, you will fall prey to bad habits. You will stop it. Because when you look at the opposite theory as well, let's say that you wanted to be a healthy person, but if you eat one unhealthy meal today, the scale doesn't move much, right? And if you do not go to the gym for one day, nothing happens. And if you work hard for a day, for a week, and you are not maintaining proper, you're not going home on time, then probably family will still forgive you. But what happens if you keep repeating these 1% errors every day? It accumulates. So look at that. What I'm trying to say is, what we all needed to remember is transformation is always slow. If you cannot think of tiny improvements, if you cannot start working on making those 1% improvements on a daily basis, you will never be able to achieve massive success in your life. That's why James Clear very clearly says in this book, this is one of my favorite quotes. He says that you should be more worried, you should be far more worried about your current trajectory than with your current results. Are you on the right path? Right? Are you taking actions, doing stuff which will ultimately make you the person that you wanted to be, the person that you wanted to see down the line, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line? He says your outcomes, let me repeat, your outcomes are lagging measure of your habits. I'll elaborate it further. Your bank balance, I repeat, your bank balance is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your weight is a lagging measure of your eating habits. Your knowledge is a lagging measure of your reading habits. Your clutter is a lagging measure of your cleaning habits, right? So unless you start working on them in a small way, you will never be able to change those. Good habits make time your friend, and bad habits make time your enemy. Habits are like double-edged sword. Good habits will build you up. Bad habits will cut you down. Why is it hard to build habits? So look at this graph. It's called the plateau of latent potential. When you start a new routine, when you start a new habit, you always think, with respect to time, you wanted to make some, you wanted to see some results. You always think that you wanted to achieve results like this. You visualize your progress to be like this. The graph says this, what you think should happen. This is what you think should happen. But this is what actually happens. But if you look at this part until it crosses this, your expectation, right? This is called the valley of disappointment. That is where most of the people, they drop their idea. Let me elaborate it with an example. So think of an ice cube. We all know that ice cube would melt at 0 degrees centigrade, right? So let's say that an ice cube sitting on a table in a cold room. and let's say the room temperature is 25 degree Fahrenheit, which means it melts at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So let's start increasing the room temperature. When you start increasing the room temperature, 26 to 27, 7 to 8, 9 to 30, 30 to 31, nothing happens, right? But at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, ice begins to melt. So 1 degree Fahrenheit shift, which seemingly had no impact before when we are moving the dial from 6 to 7, 27 to 28, 9 to 30, 30 to 31, it has no impact. It appeared as if it has no impact, but it has unlocked a huge change at 32 degrees, right? So that's why breakthrough movements are often the result of many previous actions. I'll give you an example. If you know anyone who suffered with cancer, cancer cells can spend 80% of their life undetectable in your body, and it takes entire body down in a month. I'm sure you heard about Chinese bamboo tree. The tree can be barely seen during the first 5 years because it builds an extensive root system, and then it explodes to 90 feet in just 6 weeks. So similarly, habits which appear to make no difference until you cross a critical threshold, as explained in this graph, until you cross that critical threshold, you won't appear to be unlocking a huge performance or huge potential, right? So, but you should not disappoint that, as I told you, that unless all the energy is accumulated when the temperature is changing from 5 to 6, 6 to 7, and so on and so forth, you wouldn't unlock that huge potential when the temperature changes from 31 to 32. So we shouldn't ignore that, ignore the fact that our work is not getting wasted. It is just being stored in some form, right? Just like what happened to the ice cube, all the action appeared at 32 degrees, right? And then, yeah, that's one thing that I want you to understand from this graph. If you're following my blog, you might have seen me writing an article a couple of weeks ago about goals and systems. I don't need to explain you what is a goal and what is a system. Goals means they're all about results, right? Results that you wanted to achieve. So they are your goals. Maybe you wanted to be a millionaire, you wanted to buy a car, you want to get a good job, or you wanted to go for a vacation in Europe. You can have different kinds of goals, all sorts of goals. So goals are about the results you want to achieve. What about systems? Systems are about the processes that lead to those results. I repeat, goals are all about results, systems are all about processes. Let me explain it. If you're a coach, your goal is to win a championship, then that is goal. What is your system? So your system could be like, you need to recruit players, you need to conduct weekly training practice, you need to start capturing their metrics, you need to rectify their errors, so on and so forth, right? If you're an author, I'm now writing a book. So my goal is to write a book. That's my goal. And what is my system? I already divided I identified a key theme. I divided the project into small pieces. I constructed my book outline. I started the research, and I started following a writing schedule, and I started making some progress. That's my system until I complete my book. And I follow a system, and systems can always be adjusted, tweaked, and improvised. You start with something, and then you keep identifying the do's and don'ts, and then you keep improving your system. So that's the difference between a goal and system. So what am I trying to explain here? I'm trying to explain you that goals are good, but they are not as good as systems. And you should focus less on goals, more on your systems. If you want to get better results, you have to forget about setting goals, and you should focus more on systems. I'm not denying the fact that you should not have a goal. You should have a goal without which you cannot set your direction. But that is not going to help you out. Just having a goal is no way trying to help you out. Once you have the goal, you should start making systems. You should start thinking about the systems, because those are the ones which will help you to make progress. I'll tell you why I don't like goals. I don't like goals because both winners and losers, everyone will have the same goal. Like, 10 people are attending an interview, everyone wanted to get the job. If 100 students are appearing for a test, everyone wanted to secure the admission, clear the test, get good grades, right? So if we are all participating in an Olympic game, everyone wants to win a medal, right? So that's the first problem. Winners and losers have the same goals. And then the second one is, achieving a goal is momentary change. So let's look at EnergyTech. We've got lots of youngsters. They stay in apartments, rooms, and hostel rooms. Let's say that one of our friend has got a messy room, and he's got a goal to clean it, right? If he or she summon all the energy to tidy up that room, then there's no doubt in saying that they will have a clean room for now. But if they maintain the same sloppy, dirty habits that led to the messy room in the first place, what would happen? They will soon be looking at a new pile of clutter and hoping for another burst of motivation. What happened here? They treated the symptom without addressing the cause. And if you do that, you may change you get your result, but since you do not have a system in place, you will always go back to that. You always need that motivation to be able to do it. So what you need to change, you need to change your systems, which will cause the results, right? But we put more focus on goal and forget about the systems. Then the other one is, goals generally, they restrict your happiness as well. There are some people, when I talk to people, they say that, okay, let me reach my goal and then I will be happy. No. This is the problem with goal first mentality. If you are having that goal first mentality, you will put happiness off until the next milestone, right? So that's not right. And then again, goals are at odds with long-term progress as well. Many runners, when they work hard for months, but they stop training as soon as they cross the finish line, because there is no race, there's no marathon, there's nothing, there is no longer anything that motivates them as well. So that's why you need to focus more on goals than you should focus more on systems than on goals. Again, this is another favorite quote of mine from this book. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. That's what James Clear says. I don't know how many of you understood the meaning of this. Let me repeat it again. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your system. So that beautifully, he explained here about the importance of having goals. So let's look at this diagram. So here, what he's trying to tell us is there are two types of habits. One is outcome-based habits. The other one is identity-based habits. And there are three layers. Any behavioral change, it goes through three layers: outcomes, processes, identity. So by now, you would have understood what is outcome, what is process, if not identity. So outcomes are nothing but goals. I told you, goals are nothing but results, right? Losing weight, publishing book, winning a championship, they're all goals. And then process, I told you about systems, right? And I'm not going to discuss it again. So outcomes are goals, processes are systems. And what is identity? That's your belief. So identity is your self-image, your judgment about yourself, your judgment about others. So now what is he trying to say? He's trying to explain the three layers. Any behavioral change will go through those three layers. Outcomes are about what you get. Processes are about what you do. Identity is about what you believe. I told you, outcomes are goals. So at the end, you have to get some reward. So outcomes are about what you get. Processes are about what you do. Identity is about what you believe. Then what is the difference between outcome and identity-based habits, and which one is good? Obviously, identity-based habit is good, and I'll tell you why. Let's say that there are two people who are trying to quit smoking. When offered to smoke, let's say the first person says, no, thank you, I'm trying to quit. It sounds like a reasonable response, right? But this person still believes that he is a smoker and is trying to be something else. And let's go to the second person and offer him a smoke, and he says, no, thank you, I am not a smoker. So there's a world of difference here. The statement, there is a small difference in the statement, that's all, but look at how it is reflecting his identity. For the second person, smoking is part of his former life, not the current life. And they are no longer associating themselves with the smokers. This is about identity, because he's believing, right? Unless you believe, unless you change your underlying belief, it's hard to change your habit. See, now, the behavior change is always identity change. Why do I say that? If you wanted to, see, your goal is to read a book, that's wrong. The goal should never be to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. That's identity. Reading a book is an outcome-based habit. Becoming a reader is identity-based habit. So the goal is not to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. The goal is not to run marathon, the goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to learn an instrument, the goal is to become a musician. So I have a problem. You have heard me saying multiple times on multiple dioceses, and some of you, some of the well-wishers came to me and said, Kishore, stop using that sentence, because I used to say that I'm not good at English. You heard me saying that multiple times. And I have many friends here in the office as well. People have lots of beliefs, self-beliefs. They say, oh, I'm terrible with the directions. Oh, I'm not a morning. Someone is telling that I'm not a morning person. Or someone will say, I'm bad at remembering people's names. Oh, I'm not good with technology. I'm horrible at math, and thousands of other variations. So what am I trying to say here? When you repeat a story to yourself for years together, it's very likely that you slide into those mental grooves and you start accepting it as a fact. Are you with me? If you start believing in that and start saying this time and again, it's quite possible that you would slide into those mental grooves and accept them as a fact. I'll try to prove you why your belief and your identity are linked with each other. If you go to church or temple every Sunday for 20 years, you have got the evidence that you are religious. If you study a book for 1 hour every night, you got the evidence that you are a voracious reader. If you go to the gym even when it is raining, you got the evidence that you are committed to fitness, right? So unless you believe, because that's what you believe in something, and that's what becomes your identity, and that's why you have a proof of it, right? So each time you take an action, it's like you are casting a vote for the type of person that you wish to become. And as you keep casting votes, as the votes are building up, your identity builds up. Your identity builds up, right? And it is proportional to your self-belief as well. So each time, let's say that now I wanted to write a book and I wanted to be an author, I wanted to be a writer. So each time I write a page, I cast a vote for my identity of becoming a writer. And each time someone practice a guitar or a violin, they are casting a vote for their identity to become a musician. Each time you start a workout in a gym, you are casting a vote to your identity of becoming an athlete. Each time when you go and encourage your colleagues, help your colleagues, you are casting a vote to reveal your identity of becoming a leader. And it of course works the opposite way as well. So every time you perform a bad habit, you are casting a vote for that identity too. But I'll give you a good news. Whenever you contest in an election, you don't need to get unanimously elected. You don't need to get 100% votes. The majority of the votes should be of good habits than the bad habits. So you just need majority. It doesn't matter if you cast few votes for bad behavior or unproductive habit. Your goal is to simply to make to win the majority of the time. So that's why I'll give you a few examples here. You want to lose weight. So what is the identity? You want to become the type of person who moves more every day. So how should you start? You should walk 50 steps. Remember 1% improvement. So 50 steps when you get home from work. Maybe tomorrow 100 steps. Day after tomorrow 150 steps. And if you do this for 5 days per week and add 50 steps each day, by the end of the year, I'm sure you will be hitting 10,000 steps per day. Same goes with, in my case, I wanted to become a writer. So I want to become a better writer. So what is my identity? Become the type of person who writes maybe 1,000 words every day. If I try to reach that goal, then I will be establishing, I will be meeting my goal with a good system. But how do I do that? Unless I start writing one paragraph each day, right? So that is what it is all about. So you always need to focus on identity-based habits than the outcome-based habits. As I told you with my example of a messy room, if you target on outcome-based habits, it is very likely that you will find yourself in the same situation. So focus on identity-based habits. So what is the habit loop? Once I do the habit loop, I will explain 4 concepts and we are done with this call. So what is habit loop? Building a habit is divided into 4 simple steps as you see on the screen. Cue, craving, response, reward. If you understand this, you will understand how a habit would work and how to improve it. So this 4-step pattern we can call it as a backbone of every habit. Our brain always runs through these steps in the same order each time. So what is cue? It's a trigger in your brain to initiate some behavior. So cue is a trigger in your brain to initiate a behavior. Craving is, it's the motivational force behind every habit. Response is what you do, and reward is what you get. So I'll give you some examples so you'll understand it. So when you look at cue and craving, they are in the problem phase, and the response and reward are on the solution phase. You walk into a dark room, that's the cue. The moment you walk into the dark room, right, you want to be able to see, that's the craving. Then what is the response? You flip the light switch. And what's the reward you get? You satisfy your craving to see, because that's what you intended, right? Let's say that your phone buzzes. You got a text message, your phone buzzed. That's the cue. I told you cue is the trigger. And craving is the motivational force. So in this case, as soon as your phone buzzed, you want to learn the contents of that message. That's the craving. What's the response? You grab the phone and read the text. What's the reward? Depending on what you are reading, you satisfy your craving to read the message, and either you feel happy or sad or neutral. It depends on what you are reading. So this is the pattern in which every habit will follow. And the rest of the book is about just these 4 laws. What he did was, so in the diagram also you can see cue, craving, response, reward. So cue is about the triggering, craving is that motivational force behind, inside you to be able to, move forward. Response is what you do, reward is what you get. So he came up with 4 laws, and he inverted them for breaking bad habits. So to build a good habit, he gave you 4 laws, and he asked us to invert it to break a bad habit. Sorry. Okay. You need to make your cue obvious. So make it obvious. You need to make your cue more obvious. You need to make your craving attractive. You need to make your response easy. You need to make your reward satisfying. So make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. So go the opposite way. This is for building a good habit. So if you want to break a bad habit, don't make it obvious, make it invisible. I will explain you what it is. And if you don't want to have a craving for a bad habit, don't make it attractive, make it unattractive. And you don't want to respond to a bad habit, don't make it easy, make it hard. And you don't want to receive any reward by following or learning the bad habit, make it unsatisfying. So I will explain what it is. So I've got just 4 slides. It is like this. So the first one. So you can see there are a couple of things that he's talking about here. He's talking about habit scoreboards. You can read it for yourself. The first one is habit scoreboards. The second one is implementation intention. The third one is habit stacking. And the fourth one is priming your environment. I told you that this law is all about cues. So cue is a trigger, right? So let's go one after the other. So what James Clear says is, behavior change or building good habits always starts with good awareness. So he wants us to take stock of our life habits. He wants us to take a pen and paper, make a list of all the daily habits, and prepare a scoreboard. And he's not expecting us to do anything, just list it, so that we can become more aware of our behavior. So what he says is, maybe you can write the list like, wake up, turn off alarm, check my phone, go to the bathroom, weigh myself, take a shower, brush my teeth, floss my teeth, hang up a top. You can keep writing it. And then what he says is, if it is a good habit, he asks you to put plus against it. If it is a bad habit, he asks you to put minus against it. If it is a neutral habit, for example, waking up, it's a neutral habit. You can't do anything, right? Turning off the alarm, it's a neutral habit. There's nothing good or bad about it. So you turn off the alarm, that's neutral. Maybe after getting up, you're checking your phone or taking your phone to bathroom, sitting there for half an hour instead of 10 minutes or 5 minutes. So that's a negative, right? So he's asked you to prepare a habit scoreboard. Why? As I told you that if you want to change anything, first because the goal is to notice it. So you need to notice what is actually going on in your life, without which you won't be able to make a change. So what is implementation intention that he's saying there? He says that unless you give your habit time and space to live in this world, so implementation intention says, if you want to start a new habit, you have to give your habit time and space to live in this world. So what is, it says that many people, they think they lack motivation when to start a new habit. But the fact of the matter is, they don't lack motivation, they lack clarity, right? So that's why he says that apply this strategy to your habit and give them some time and space. So he says, I will behavior at time in location. So for example, I will meditate for 1 minute at 7 a.m. in my kitchen, or I will study French for 20 minutes at 6 p.m. in my bedroom, or I'll make my wife a cup of coffee at 7 a.m. every Saturday in the kitchen. I'll exercise for 30 minutes every day at 5 p.m. in my balcony, something like that. So you have to be very explicit about it. So you have to show your implementation intention by putting it. And I'm not going into the details. The book is all about lots of scientific studies that have happened in lots of reputed universities. Um, by scientists, and he quoted it, and it is quite convincing. When I read it, and I thought, no, this couldn't be right. But when he started publishing all the results of different scientists and different research that has been carried out in different parts of the world, so I had to make myself convinced. And it really, I could see that it really works well if you start giving a time and space to your habit. And then he says about habit stacking there. So what is habit stacking? The name itself suggests, right? You need to, so if you want to build a new habit, you identify a current habit, and then you stack it on the top of that. Let me repeat it. If you want to build a new habit, you identify a current habit, which you are already doing each day, then stack up your new habit on the top of that. It's called habit stacking. So it's like, it can be like this. What can I say? After I take my cup of coffee each morning, I'll meditate for say 10 minutes. After I meditate for 10 minutes, maybe I'll write my to-do list, something like that. You have to stack it. If you have that intention, you will be able to do that. And what he also says is, people who are good at habits, they'll have a game plan for their life's actions. For example, some people will say that whenever I see a set of stairs, I will take them instead of using the lift. Or whenever I walk into a party or walk into a new place, I will introduce myself, and I will introduce myself to someone whom I don't know. Or whenever I wanted to buy anything more than say 5,000 rupees, I will wait for a day before purchasing. So you should start having some game plans. Now I'm going to give you the highlight of this entire session: priming the environment. Remember, what are we talking about? We are talking about cue, right? We're talking about the trigger which would initiate a good or bad habit. So he says, by priming your environment, you can control your cues. You can create more triggers for good habits, less triggers for bad habits. I hope majority of you are following what I'm trying to say. Let me decode it for you. Do you think it's easy for someone to practice a guitar when it is tucked away in the closet? No. It's not easy to read a book when the bookshelf is in the corner of the guest room. If you want to practice guitar more frequently, what should you do? You should place your guitar, or maybe guitar or guitar stand, in the middle of the living room. Let's say you want to drink more water, fill a few water bottles each morning and place them in different locations around your house, different rooms, you do that. So you'll always have that cue, right? It will be visible in front of you. So if you want to, this is again another highlight in the book. If you want to make a habit big part of your life, you need to make the cue big part of your environment. Let me give you a few more examples. Let's say we're all working from home. Assume that one of you have got the problem, you can't seem to get any work done because you're always dragged, connected to your phone, and you have this craving to open social media and keep looking at it. So if you can't seem to get any work done, leave your phone in the other room for a few hours. That's priming the environment. So if you continuously feel like you are worth for nothing, stop following social media channels. And if you're watching, this is highlight, you see, if you're watching too much of or wasting too much of time watching television, move the TV out of your main hall. Okay, that's not possible, Kishore. Okay, unplug it after each use. Only plug it back if you can say out loud the name of the show that you want to watch. Or at least you can do this. Try taking out the batteries out of the remote after each use. So it takes extra 10 seconds to be able to turn it back, right? So this is about priming the environment. And if you're spending too much money on electronics, quit reading reviews. If you are playing too many video games, you have to unplug your console and put it in the closet after every use. So this is the power of priming the environment. You want to draw more? Put more pencils, pens, notebooks, drawing tools on the top of your desk. You want to exercise, and if you are not Prabhakar, if you want to exercise, you don't want to, if you don't feel like doing it, do one thing tonight when you go home, identify your workout clothes, shoes, whatever, bag, water bottle, you put it right next to your bed and go to sleep. Next day morning when you get up, the first thing that you see is your your shoes, right? Your shoes and your whatever is needed for you to initiate the trigger. So your cue is automatic. You want to improve your diet, what can you do? You can chop off, Rachel, you can chop off some fruits, vegetables on weekends and pack them in a container and then put them not in the not too deep into the refrigerator. Maybe keep it outside so that not outside, in the front row, so that you'll be able to see them and eat healthy food. So the greater the friction, the less likely the habit, right? Therefore, you needed to create your environment in such a way that you should be, the queue is quite visible. That's what, make it obvious. So you need to make your queue obvious. What the author says, James Clear, he uninstalls his social media apps every weekend, and or else he will ask his secretary, secretary to change the password and give it back only during the weekend, so that weekdays he doesn't need to look at it. So if you have an accountability partner, so some of you don't have that problem because you are not like me, you don't watch, you don't follow social media channels, don't spend a lot of time. But those of you who have got this problem, you can do that. You can try doing it, right? So the next one, are you guys finding it interesting? If you're finding it interesting, then just type yes. I can't, yeah, I can see actually. Yes, okay, so you guys are still alive. We got two more, if I do this slide, two more rows. Okay, let me continue. So we spoke about Q, right? Make it attractive. And that's about good habits. I also told you about bad habits. Make it less attractive, opposite. Everything is inverse. Now I'm talking about, what is it? Craving, right? About the motivational force. So you need to make it attractive. So there are a couple of things that he mentioned here. One is temptation bundling, right? The second one is joining a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. And third one is creating a motivational ritual. So at a very high level again, let me explain what it is. Let's say that you would love to listen to podcasts, and it is killing your day and productivity, and but listening to podcast is something that you love to do. So then what you do is you combine that with exercise. That's temptation bundling. So you listen to podcasts which you love while exercising. Or else, for example, you wanted to watch your favorite show, right? But you're finding it difficult to iron your son's clothes or your family member's clothes. So you can club both of them, right? You can say that you watch your favorite show while ironing the clothes, or maybe doing some household chores. And if you want to read the news, you're spending a lot of time reading the news, and you're finding it difficult to cultivate the habit of being more grateful, right? So what you can do is, after after I after you take your morning coffee, you'll say one thing that you are grateful for, right? And after you say one thing what you are grateful for, then you maybe flip it. What you can do is, for example, in my case, from I think maybe when I'm in fifth standard, I'm reading Energy newspaper. I'm a big fan of that. I feel like something is missing in my life if I don't spend at least a couple of minutes reading Energy newspaper. So if I'm struggling with being grateful, and I wanted to say it out loud to God, to my family members, to whoever in my life, what I'm grateful for. So I will keep a habit in such a way that I will not read the newspaper unless 2 minutes I think about what I'm grateful for. I won't do it. So that's how you can actually go for temptation bundling. For example, let's say Jennifer. Sorry, Jennifer, I'm taking the liberty to use your name. Let's say, because I see you a lot on Instagram. But let's say that you are fit actually, but let's say you are not fit and you wanted to be fit. So what you can say to yourself is, after I pull out my phone, I will do minimum 10 squats, without which I will not check my Instagram or I will not check my Facebook, whatever it is. So it's all about that, 1% tiny small improvements. Moving on, joining the culture. What he says is, and we all have read this sentence multiple times. I'm sure about it. We are the average of 5 people we spend the most time with. I don't know whether you know it or not. And if you are not liking your friends, if you are not liking your tribe, and if you think that they are not dragging you downwards, they are not helping you to become a better person, it's time that you should move out of that. You have to keep always in an environment where you can grow, you can learn, and that's why I always say, you heard me saying this multiple times, you should never be the smartest person in the room all the time. At times it's fine, but all the time, if you position yourself as the smartest person in the room, then something is wrong. You've got to start to move on, and you got to position yourself in a better environment. So what am I trying to say here? One of the most effective things that you can do to build a better habit is to join a culture where your desired behavior is normal and expected behavior of that group. What do I mean by that? You want to become a reader, join a book club, because that's the reading books is the expected behavior norm of that group, right? That tribe. You want to be a biker, Harish, you join bike club. You want to be a musician, join a band, right? You are a cyclist, join a cycling group. The culture we live in determines which behavior we attract. And I'm sure you agree with me. You ask any person who smokes, who drinks today, most of the time they got influenced by their tribe. That's from where they pick up that habit. Because what happens is, it is most days we would rather be wrong with the crowd than be right by ourselves, because that's the power of the tribe, right? When you are with someone, the normal behavior of the tribe often overpowers the desired behavior of the individual. You don't want to smoke, you don't want to you don't want to drink, but when you are with the tribe all the time, they will always overpower you. So you got to be careful with whom are you spending your time with. We always don't forget the fact that we always tend to imitate the habits of our family, friends, colleagues in our tribe, those whom we admire, right? So you got to be careful about with whom you are spending time. Okay, that's about tribe. So I can't remember what's the motivation ritual. So you read the book for that. I'm moving on to the third law, which is about response. So you have to make it easy for good habit, make it difficult for a bad habit. Okay, so I'm not going into reading each one of them. You can read it there. I will try to give you some examples. So it seems a professor in the University of Florida, he divided his film photography students into two groups, a quality group, a quantity group. I repeat, he divided his film photography students into two groups, quantity, quality. So he called the quantity group students, he told them, go and take as many photos as you can or as you want. And you know what? Your grade will be decided based on the number of photos you take. If you take 100 photos, you'll get 10 CGPA. If you get 90 photos, you'll get 9 CGPA. If you get 80 photos, you'll get 8 CGPA, and so on. And he sent them. He called the quality group, and he told to the quality group, your grade would be based on the excellence of your work. You just need to produce one photo during this entire semester to get a 10 CGPA. It had to be nearly perfect image. So the more perfection that one image has got, the more marks, more percentage that you would get. So naturally, at the end of the term, which group do you think would have produced the best photos? We think the quality group, right? Wrong. The quantity group. Why? Because throughout the semester, they were taking photos experimenting with the composition, lighting, they're testing various methods in the dark room, and they're learning from their mistakes. The more you do, the more you learn from your mistakes, and the system, right? The system would keep getting better and better day by day. Therefore, in the process of creating hundreds of photos, they honed their skills. Meanwhile, the quality group was moving around, speculating about perfection, reading lots of books. In the end, they had little to show for their efforts other than one mediocre photo. What am I trying to say here? Like, don't worry about the outcome. Just jump and build your wings on the way down. You may get it wrong, but learn it. Whatever it is, whether it is doing a task, learning a new technology, or when you are asked to present something, when you're asked to learn something, doesn't matter. As long as you have a support system around you, you don't need to worry about it. Just don't worry about the mistakes. But once you realize what is your mistake, you need to keep rectifying that. This is exactly the problem of the problem that you and I are facing. We're all so focused on figuring out the best approach, and we will never. If you're thinking about figuring out the best approach, you will never get around to take action, right? Remember, there's a world of difference between being in motion, taking in action. Suppose you wanted to be a fit person, and you go to the gym, talk to the trainer, you go to the gym and talk to trainer 5 times, 6 times, but unless you join the gym and start showing up in the gym, right? The motion would not. Motion is basically going and talking to the trainer, finding out all the details. But unless you take action, motion is useless. Having said that, what I can also say is without motion, you can't take action. So motion is needed, but it alone doesn't give you any kind of results. But motion makes you feel like you are getting things done, but you are not actually getting things done. You are really preparing to get some things done. So here is the key. If you want to master any habit, the keys to any good habit is starting with repetition, not perfection. So you start it and then keep repeating it, and over a period of time you will become perfect, right? So actually I'm touching upon this point in my new book as well. How long does it take to build a new habit? So there's some research going on. Research happened in University College of London, and it says it took nearly 66 days to install a new habit in your brain. So if you can muster all the courage, all the support, have an accountability partner, take help of your friends, your family members, your kids or your parents. If you could establish or install that habit in you for 66 days, it could be walking, it could be, learning new music or learning a new technology or whatever it is. If you could do it successfully or start spending time successfully for 66 days, it's more likely that you would continue it. And also there, you missed about 2-minute rule. He says that what he says is you should always, whenever you think of a goal, whenever you set up a system, always in the beginning, it should not take more than 2 minutes. It should be always less than 2 minutes to do. Interesting, right? For example, you wanted to run a marathon, but your gateway habit is to put on your running shoes. Unless you put your running shoes every day morning, you can't run a marathon, right? So the 2-minute rule could be like, as long as if you always focus on putting your running shoes, it's very likely that you put your running shoes and go back and sleep in the bed, right? And let's say that your 2-minute rule is always to kickstart your bike to go to the gym. It's very unlikely that you go and you come back. As long as you cross that hurdle of kicking the bike starting rod and then sit on it and then move out of your house, it's very likely that you go to the gym and then you do it. So always you should focus on the 2-minute rule. Then things will automatically happen. This is one of my favorite quote in this book. In order to master the habit, he says that you need to show up to grow up. So you need to show up to grow up. The showing up is the key for building any good habit. Yeah, now I got it right. Showing up is the key to getting good habit. You need to show up to grow up, right? One push-up is better than not exercising, right? 1 minute of guitar practicing is better than not doing it all. 1 minute of reading is better than never picking up a book. So it is better to do less than you hope than to doing nothing at all. So I'll tell you one small a minute long story. In 1830, there is an author called Victor Hugo. He is very popular, and I don't remember his books. He's a very popular French author, and he got A US publisher has given a good publishing house has paid money to him and asked him to write a book, and then this guy took the money, spent the year pursuing other projects, entertaining guests, he delayed his work. Then the frustrated publisher responded by setting a deadline. And he said, if you don't finish my book less than 6 months, and you have to pay the money back with interest. And you know what this guy did? He collected all his cloths. This is about, again, priming the environment as well. He collected all his cloths. He asked his assistant to lock him, take those cloths, lock it in a closet and take the key with him. Which means he has left with nothing to wear except a large shop. So he sat there and then he could complete the book. So it's all about, sometimes you need to make things difficult for you, without which, or create that ambience and environment around it, without which you will not be able to respond properly, right? Let's say that you and your family are struggling with internet consumption. Maybe it is applicable for me. What you can do is, you can put a timer-based adapter between your electrical supply and your internet router, and you can configure it in such a way that it will shut down automatically at 10 p.m. each night. Everyone will go to bed, right? So sometimes you have to make, for bad habit, you have to make it difficult, and for good habit, you need to make it easy. So, this is actually quite heartening, the power of technology. We all feel like, we are in the era of technology and, it is really helping us, but it actually started working against all of us. Look at binge watching, that habit, look at that habit. You don't need to put more effort into stop looking at the screen, because what these guys would do, Netflix or YouTube, they will autoplay everything for you. All that you have to do is keep your eyes wide open. So you've got to be very careful about that. You need to make things difficult. For a bad habit, you need to make things difficult. As I told you, uninstall social media accounts. They might look like extreme measures, but sometimes that's the only way. Or ask one of your family member to change the password, as I said, and give it back to you during the weekend. I leave the rest for you to read the book, the last slide. Make it satisfying. So there are a couple of things that he is talking about here. So this is about reward. You need to make reward satisfying for good habits, unsatisfying for bad habits. So what are the items that he is talking about here? First one is use reinforcement. So give yourself an immediate reward when you complete your habit. You know what? What is rewarded is repeated. What is punished is avoided. Because we belong to a generation which is known for instant gratification. If not me, at least the youngsters now, they belong to the smartphone generation. Right from very young age, they're holding these smartphones in their hands. So they're quite habituated for that instant gratification, instant food, instant delivery, anything they can do with the help of the phone. They want immediate results, right? And we also many of us want immediate results. This is exactly why we fall prey to bad habits. Because what happens is, we know that if you are doing, when you are building a good habit, the result is not immediate, the result is in future. But because we did not practice delayed gratification, we are not we are not mindful about delayed gratification, because we want instant gratification, instant results. For us, a reward worth X in present is better than 100X in future. That's the problem, right? So yeah, we need to be mindful about that, and maybe you need to create some, he talks about, I think, some loyalty programs as well. What he says, let's say that as a family, you all wanted to go to Europe. Let's say you wanted to have a Switzerland trip, or you wanted to go to maybe a Singapore trip. Create a bank account with that name, right? Maybe you can't open it with that name, but let's say for your family, that account means a trip to Europe. And now you can start building good habits. So if you are, you wanted to become a healthy man and you were going to gym, every time you miss going to gym, deposit 500 rupees into that account. Or you're drinking alcohol and you wanted to tempt it, you wanted to control your temptation, then deposit 500 rupees every time you stopped. You feel like you control your temptation to drinking, and then go and do that. It could be anything, right? So there is other way of doing it also. For example, you wanted to have a habit contract. You can have a contract It could be a virtual contract as well. And then you can say that every time I miss going to gym, I will give 500 rupees to my trainer. You could do that as well. Whichever works better for you, you can do that. But you need to create some system around you, because without which you will not be able to move. So habit tracker is exactly that. See that image on the bottom. So we all know what is habit tracker. It's a tracker. It's a simple way to measure whether you did a habit or not. So why do we need to have a habit tracker? It plays a very vital role. Many of us use our calendars as habit trackers. Habit tracking keeps you motivated, keeps you honest. It gives you satisfaction and gives you clear evidence of your progress as well. So no matter how, this is the problem, right? No matter how consistent we are with our habits, life happens. There might be an emergency, someone in the family will fall sick, or you yourself might get sick, or you have to travel for work to somewhere, or your family needs a little more of your time. So what happens? You will miss on these routines. We are talking about consistent actions right from the beginning of this talk. But when you start practicing a good habit, and when you start, when life happens like this, and when you miss out, it's okay if you miss out one day. The first mistake is not the one that ruins you. It is the spiral of repeated mistakes. You know what James Clear says? Missing the routine for one day is an accident. That's okay. Missing it twice is the start of new habit. I hope you agree with me on that, right? So yeah, I'll conclude. The first last 4 slides are 200 pages in the book. The first 6 slides are 50 pages in the book. And the 5 big ideas that we discussed. The first one is 1% tiny improvement every day, because I told you that we should start believing in the compounding effect of consistency. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement, right? So if you be better 1% every day, you'll get better 37% by the end of the year. If you become 1% worse every day, then you'll almost come to 0. So that's the first big idea that we learned. 1% tiny improvement every day. The second one that we learned was goal. I also part of 1% tiny improvements. I told you about the aggregation of marginal gains. And then the next one is we talked about goals versus systems. If you want better results, forget about setting goals, focus on your systems. The third thing that we learned, you should start practicing identity-based habits, not outcome-based habits. And the fourth one that I explained you, how to prime your environment. You can prime your environment in such a way that you can help yourself to make your life better day by day. And then I told you about the 4 steps that we follow in either forming a good habit or bad habit. I said cue, craving, response, reward. And I gave you 4 laws for building good habits, which is making it obvious, making it attractive, making it easy, and making it satisfying. And I also gave you 4 laws for how to break a bad habit, having exactly the inverse meaning of each of these laws. So once again, I'm really